What's up, friends? Welcome back to SJU. It's Friday. We did it. Congratulations. Pat yourself on the back. Oh, wow, I love that you guys actually did it. Usually no one does it here. Yeah. I'm Roxy Striar, but I am not alone today. I am joined by the fabulous Emma Fyffe.
Hello, it is fantastic to be here on this fabulous Friday. I'm just going to keep coming up with F words and alliterate my way all the way through this.
But it is still a PG-friendly show, so let's see how far those F words take us this morning. Also here with the new nickname I gave him last week, E.G. Eric Goldman in the house.
Hello, my favorite F word is Filoni.
Which is suck up. The last name.
What a teacher's pet.
Of a director who worked
That's what
on
you're going to go with?
Look, I was just stuck in traffic for an hour and a half. I need to decompress and talk about some fun Star Wars stuff.
Fun. Yeah. That's the word of the day today. Comment all the F words you want in the comments below. I asked for it.
Dangerous.
Sorry, Ken. Yeah. Sorry, Ryan. For what you'll have to put up with now. Frozen. That's a good one. Fantabulous.
Yeah.
Also an excellent one. We've got a lot to talk about today, guys. Episode 3 of Mandalorian just dropped. I say just because depending on which device you're watching on / where you live, it drops at completely different times. This maddening thing that's happening. Yeah. Also, The Rock is talking, and he's talking JSA, so we're going to get to that. And it is Fan Friday, so of course we'll be taking some fan questions. Go fan questions. Wow, it didn't look as cool just now as I was hoping.
Yeah.
It just was not as...
We needed to like get a jazz hands to the side situation.
Oh, yeah.
Riddle me this?
Thank you to Ken for making me look cooler, sound better, all of those things. All right, let's get into Mandalorian, though, guys, because I know that's top of mind for everybody today. Let's start with non-spoilery Mandalorian 3 stuff, and then we can get into a little more spoiler. We will let you guys know that. So, non-spoiler in general, how did you feel about Episode 3? How did it compare to Episode 1 and 2, if you were ranking them, and any general thoughts? Eric?
I think this is my favorite one so far. Yeah, a lot of things started to coalesce. I can say words. It's come together here, and it's interesting because this show is in some ways like minimalist. You know, obviously it's shorter runtimes, but also it's like right now it's definitely working in archetypes. Not that Star Wars hasn't always done that, and so it's not like there's been any huge twists or turns, but it's just there's something about the vibe of this show and the way they're approaching it, and I really liked this episode. Even though, yes, we'll get into spoilers. I wasn't shocked by what happened, but I was like, no, this is a really cool sort of seeing this happen through for this character, the why it's happening, getting a little more of a peek into some of the things around this character. So yeah, this is my favorite one so far.
Emma, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I don't really like to compare episodes because this is one big story. I mean, the thing that I have really been enjoying about the show thus far, and I feel this episode is no exception, is that it's allowed, like every episode has been allowed to be its own little self-contained space western adventure. Kind of, as you say, Eric, dealing in different archetypes and tropes that we're very familiar with, which again is something that Star Wars has been doing for a long time, but also approaching them with like a little bit of a different perspective because again, space fantasy, not old school Western, and some of the not as great sort of attitudes and tropes that come along with that. But yeah, I am so enthralled with this show so far. I think it's such a strong choice to have everything be from the single, titular character's perspective, because thus far we've really only seen stuff from the Mandalorian's perspective. Yeah. And we're not getting anybody else's perspective. And that's part of why I think having these, 30, 35 minute runtimes for the episodes works really well, because you're just getting this very, like this oddly quiet, self-contained kind of character study in a way, but you're also seeing directly how the world is affecting him. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. I am still an episode 2 gal, but I loved this episode as well. And unlike you, Eric, who was not surprised, I don't know whether it's because I'm such a casual Star Wars fan. Obviously, I've seen all the movies a ton of times, but I am not somebody who knows all of the things or everything. I don't know that much about Mandalorian culture in general. So I was very pleasantly surprised with some of the things that took place. I feel like on that note, we should get into a little bit of spoiler talk. So, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. I don't know if we're putting Joe dancing in the corner.
Joe gonna dance for us?
What do we got?
I guess maybe we'll get a dancing Joe. All right, we're getting the dancing Joe back. Thank goodness. Wow, he offers to do it live. Then.
Not be distracted by that? That'd be interesting.
I know. So we will put the dancing Joe back up then, I guess, when we're done, if he's not dancing the entire time. Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
That's what we will do. So
No, there he is.
Oh, no, he's back. Okay.
He's back.
There he is.
He fades in and out. He's ethereal.
He comes and goes. He's
like Force Ghost Joe.
So let's talk some spoilers. What we were just talking about with the surprise, not surprise. I had to ask Ken when I came in this morning because I was like, why'd they all do that? What, like, how, aren't we going to be in big trouble?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a little kid watching this.
Totally.
Like, but what do you mean?
Yeah, well, it's like when you were a little kid, at least for me, when I was a little kid and I watched Empire Strikes Back for the first time, and I was like, is Darth Vader really Luke's dad?
And you got to double check.
Yeah.
Like, did you guys hear what I just heard?
Exactly.
Is anybody watching this? So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. No, I'm massively into Mandalorians, particularly all of the new canon stuff, that was established in Clone Wars and continued on in Rebels, and clearly is something that they're diving into in this series as well as continuing to do what, sort of the expanded new canon of Star Wars has done, which is to kind of pull in elements of what is now considered to be Legends that is good, because some of it's a little silly, but they're bringing in some of the silly too, which is also great. But yeah, so I think for me, even knowing that, like clearly something's gone on, we really don't know what's happened at this point, as far as how and what went down with the Empire and the Great Purge, because as far as we know, at the end of Star Wars Rebels, like things were kind of starting to look a little better for the Mandalorians. So I really wonder what happened, and that made them kind of go into hiding as they are right now. And I don't know, to me, it was a lot of like, it was marrying kind of the best parts of Mandalorian culture of like, yes, we are these warriors, but during the Clone Wars, the Mandalorians were a neutral pacifist society. Yeah. So now it's kind of like, yes, we're fighting, but we have something that we're fighting for.
Right. And I also liked it because it's like, yes, you would figure he's going to go back and save that baby.
I know.
But what I liked is that...
We're so good, though. I'm so happy.
So happy, too.
So good.
It's so good. Look at his little co-pilot there.
But it's excellent because he's about to make the journey for his next trip, and then we just watch that. Even though you can't see his face, I can see his face.
Yes. Yeah.
I see his face being like, no, I have to do this. I don't want to, but like, gotta go get the kid.
It's such a beautiful piece of storytelling to that moment where he gets back in the Razor Crest and he like goes to grab the lever that the baby took the top little circle thing off of, and that's the memory that triggered. I mean, it was just really beautifully done.
It was. And I feel like, look, Boba Fett, is not a huge presence in the movies, but he's a memorable one. But it's like the idea that the Fetts were not true Mandalorians. I think we're getting a little more insight into that here, because it's like, it's not that he is like a cruel guy learning to not be cruel. It's like he's dispassionate. Like they take these jobs, and so they're trying to like, this is a job, but and yes, things are changing for him. But it's like, when you think about Boba Fett, who was a little more like, he's worth a lot to me. Like, and the Fetts were not true Mandalorians. They did not have that honor in the same way. I saw a couple people saying like they're really leaning into sort of the samurai element here with the Mandalorians, and I feel like that really fits, and getting a little more of a look at all of them working together, and the fact that there was infighting, but even that wasn't like, you got the job and I didn't. It was more,
No, it was like how can we respect you and you be honorable and like loyal to your people if you are effectively cavorting with the Empire?
Right.
But yeah, it's such an interesting lens to explore this tumultuous time period through, because they very much are suggesting that, yeah, okay, great, the rebellion is over, the rebels won, but not everything is instantly solved. Obviously,
Right.
in the Outer Rim, you still see vestiges of the Empire, and as Grief Karga, Carl Weathers' character, says, they're all just like warlords and crime bosses, and it's not really the Empire, but the Mandalorian, clearly, because they've got such a horrible history with the Empire, and the Empire, you know, I have theories as to how they could have wiped them out, for sure, based on some stuff that went down in Star Wars Rebels, but that basically, like, so he obviously has very strong opinions about the Empire that he can't quite let go, and that ties into they wanted this little baby, and this baby is a precious foundling like he was once as a child.
So speaking about that for a second, how are you guys feeling about the flashbacks? We're getting them very few and far between, but when we are seeing them, they're incredibly poignant.
Yes.
Are you wanting an entire flashback episode? Are you wanting it to stay sprinkled through like this?
I think what I want is like a nice through line flashback sequence once we like really hit the heart of what the flashbacks are all about. I don't know that I need it to be an entire episode, but if you want to give me like a solid 10-15 of here are all the events that we've seen, because basically we keep seeing the flashbacks every time he's with the armorer and every time she's, you know, forging pieces of his armor, and, you know, when she hits with the hammer, that's what's triggering the flashbacks, which the way it's being handled is really, really effective.
Artistically pretty stunning as well.
It's funny that it's actually, I'm a little different on that. One of my only criticisms was I didn't like that it was so specifically the same act, just because it felt like such a funny, to me it felt a little funny that it was like such a trigger for him, like hitting metal, like, you know, is like, I feel like he should be like, I'm gonna leave the room, just because it was so specifically the same thing.
You would like him to excuse himself?
Yes,
to be like, I need a moment.
I'll be out.
Don't want to deal with my trauma right now.
Call me when my cool armor's done. So I wish it was a little bit of a different in to the flashback, but I am intrigued by these little glimpses we're getting.
Yeah.
You know?
Is there anything else, Emma, because he just said something that he's not particularly impressed with? Is there anything that's not working for you?
It's not working for me. I am so, like, inclined to love this show that I'm having a hard time being critical of it.
Honestly, I feel you on that. Again, I feel like the child who, this is a Passover reference, but the child who does not know enough to ask. Like, I'm watching this and I'm like, I am so in.
Yeah.
I don't know
what's happening, but
I don't even know what would be happening that would make me not in right now, because it's so cool. All the criticism I see online about all of us calling Baby Yoda. I'm like, no, what am I going to call it, man?
No, Lucasfilm said that was acceptable, because what else are we going to call it? We don't even know.
Until they give us a real name.
We don't know what the name of that species is, even.
Yeah.
I kind of don't want a name.
Yeah.
What's the name of it? Like Gertrude?
The child. Yeah.
Frederick? Henry? Like, what kind of name are we going to name little Yoda that's going to be better than Baby Yoda?
Yeah.
Speaking of names, did you see in the closing credits that one of the Mandalorians is named Vizsla?
I also sure noticed that one of those Mandalorians sounded an awful lot like Jon Favreau.
Yeah, so it feels like Favreau's playing his own, like, nephew or something.
Yes.
If you don't know, Jon Favreau played Pre-Vizsla on Star Wars Clone Wars.
And if you are a fan of Clone Wars, then you almost certainly noticed that one of the Mandalorians legitimately just had the exact same voice that Jon Favreau did for Pre-Vizsla. So
Yeah. I remember trying to track down that Pre-Vizsla action figure.
Oh, man.
Let's come out of spoiler talk now, and just one more thing to talk about out of spoilers. So this is the
goodbye.
Goodbye, spoilers.
We're saying goodbye to spoilers.
Now you come back to us.
I could watch Joe dance all day, whatever that means. Question for you guys about the next episode. How are you guys feeling about this being Bryce Dallas Howard's episode and supposedly the introduction to Gina Carano's character?
I mean, I'm just based on what I saw at the panel that they had at the Mandalorian premiere, I am very excited. I know that Gina Carano really enjoyed working with Bryce Dallas Howard. I also happened to have another friend that worked on that episode and had a very positive experience. So
she's got friends in high places.
Yeah.
I spoke to Bryce Dallas Howard a couple months ago for like a Rocket Man interview, but we talked, I asked her, it was like one of those things where I had asked her just one little question about working on Mandalorian, and she gave me a long answer because like, she was excited. And you know, it's like, you do think it's funny, like she really grew up around all this. It's like, okay, her dad directed Solo a couple years ago, but she also grew up like with her dad directing Willow.
Yeah.
And, like, basically almost like Uncle George. Like, you know, she was around George Lucas her whole life.
Yeah.
And now she's getting to actually, like, you know, make her directorial debut with this.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty
and
cool.
she talked about how, you know, she and her siblings would get Star Wars action figures for Christmas from George every single year.
Yeah.
So
straight from the source.
She's
Same.
Yeah, like she's been playing Star Wars her whole life. So I'm very, very excited to see what she does. But man, I gotta give props for this last episode to Deborah Chow.
Big deal.
First woman to ever direct anything Star Wars, and also a woman of color. It's a really big deal.
And the fact that you know she's been hired as the director on Obi-Wan, because Mandalorian's a little different from their approach to their other shows, including the MCU ones, where it looks like they're going to have a single director for the entire seasons. But Mandalorian, they're switching around. But yeah, Obi-Wan, it's Deborah Chow is now going to direct the entire thing. And I thought this was a proof of concept for, you know, she already done a lot of good TV direction prior to this, but then you watch this, you're like, yeah.
Completely agreed. And speaking of Deborah Chow and The Mandalorian, I know, Eric, that people don't want the conversation to stop here.
Yeah.
So if they want to find more on it.
I just published this morning an article that I know we'll have a link to in the comments below, but yeah, it's there was a really interesting Q&A I went to the other day that was with a Women of Lucasfilm. It was at Porsche, which was weird, but they're a marketing tie-in.
Oh, that's right. I remember seeing
Rise of Skywalker.
I remember seeing the sculpted butter.
The Millennium Falcon next to a Porsche. Yeah. But
wow, what?
Yes.
Oh yeah. It was like a Porsche sponsored event.
Yes.
When you say butter, you legitimately
Literally,
It was
literally
butter. So it was the Falcon made of butter and a little Porsche made of butter. But Kathleen Kennedy was on the panel, and Deborah Chow, and God, I'm forgetting her last name, Victoria, who is the second unit director.
Becca.
Oh yeah,
Not
correct,
Becca.
totally right.
Secret.
No, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking
But
about.
it was all really interesting, and Deborah Chow, they talked about Obi-Wan, but one thing they really talked about that is interesting is the way they're making this show. They talked about it at that panel you and I were at. But this is all VR sets. This is crazy how they're making this show. It sounds like future tech, it sounds like the holodeck from Star Trek, because this, instead of having green screen, it's like projection around them. And they said people would come to set and think they'd built, like, no, you're standing in VR. Like, because you're not wearing goggles or anything. And so the cast all said it was super trippy.
The future is now.
But it's like, that was like, they had to figure out new tech for the show, because it's like, that was Lucas's question. I know he'd always bring it up. Like, how do you make a Star Wars TV show that looks like Star Wars, but is on a budget for a TV show? And this was their solution. It was like, now that basically, Kathleen Kennedy's like, instead of sending the entire crew to Iceland because it was a TV show, we might need one scene, we send one guy to Iceland to film some stuff.
Get some establishing.
Yeah. But then we can project it so the actors are not in front of green screen. They're not like, I don't know what's around me. It's like, no, this is what's around you. So
Curious what you guys at home think about all of this. Don't forget to like, comment. We want to know what your thoughts are. Subscribe, hit that bell. I was looking right at you, man.
Mahoney, by the way, Victoria Mahoney.
Thank you,
Oh my
Mahoney.
God, thank
My
you.
favorite Police Academy character.
Well,
Victoria
I
Mahoney.
am glad you mentioned Victoria, though, because it does bring us into our next section, which is how the Victoria's Secret fashion show has been canceled. And I know that we want to talk about that for a good half hour here on the show. Seems
It's a difficult time for all of us.
It is a very challenging time for all of us. I can see Joe crying in the corner right now. Speaking of Joe, I do think that he has something to tell us. I doubt it's about Victoria's Secret fashion show, but we don't know.
It's about the Victoria's Secret fashion show.
Hi, I'm a little
Joe's
frustrated.
gonna sing an ode to the Victoria's Secret
And
fashion
dance.
show.
Honey, I just done my fittings. Now I ain't walking nowhere. Like, what the hell? So I wanted to come in and do a little thing. We announced this week we were doing on Monday as a thank you to you guys for driving Galaxy Quest so hard and making this so big for us with Fathom events on the 26th. That on Monday we were going to do this Q&A on this app called Shindig, and that it was going to be a live SJU. Shindig is in beta, and we're sort of helping them beta test it, and that means some bugs and some kinks. So it's still happening Monday. It's not going to be, ooh yeah, the diag cam. It's not going to be,
Whoa.
Hey, what's up? What's up, homies? So it's not going to be live on SJU. Here's how Monday's going to work. We're going to do a slightly, ooh, wide now. We're going to do a slightly, I'm just seeing where I see red lights. Hey!
Professional.
We're going to do a slightly shorter SJU on Monday. During that entire broadcast, we're going to just like pound a link for you to go to into your brains for the entire run of SJU. It's going to be in the chat. It's going to be in the comments. We're going to repeat it over and over again. It's going to be a lower third, a left third, a right third, an upper third. It's going to be everywhere. During the show, click on that link. It's going to take you to this app called Shindig, and that's where you can start getting in. And it's like a very fancy Google Hangout where all of you can get in with us. Wow. And it's almost like a virtual like Hall H. It's the only time we'll ever be important enough to be at Hall H.
It's like the Mandalorian tech guy.
Exactly. Pretty much. It's like a virtual Hall H. Like we're literally like you're able to sort of like walk up and line up at a podium, ask a question, and we'll answer and respond. So unfortunately, we're not able to do it as a live SJU. It's not quite there yet, but we'll be doing it as an event exclusive for you guys on Monday. So make sure you plan for that. Make sure you come hang out. It's going to be really, really cool. We just wanted to make sure you knew that that's how it was happening. The hows and what's its you'll find out on Monday when we release the link and all that good stuff. So we'll see you guys Monday. Have a good rest of the show.
But are you going to like dance or what? Cool.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was a wasted appearance if we don't get the dancing from Jeff. Live dancing from him. Also, guys, we did want to talk to you for a minute about Big Brothers and Big Sisters of America. This was an organization that I was a part of when I was younger. I was a mentor, and it was an unbelievable experience. I got to do a ton of fun stuff. You know how you live in a city and you're like, I can't do touristy things here, but when you have somebody that you're mentoring, you totally can. So we got to go to the zoo and all of the places that are actually really fun to go. I think that it's an excellent way to get involved and give your time. So if you want to be cool like me, kids, who doesn't? BBBS.org to learn more. That's Big Brother and Big Sister. BBBS.org to learn more. It's a really important program, so please go check that out. Let's get into our next story, guys, because The Rock seems to drop nuggets whenever and wherever he wants. I don't think he asks anybody for permission about anything at any time.
He's The Rock. He doesn't have to.
I did a set visit to Rampage, and it was funny because I know he had this thing of like posting pictures with people when did set visits.
Yeah.
I remember it'd be like, you're embargoed till like, next year on this, but then he's like, here's a picture of us all. Yeah. And it happened, like my friends told me it happened on G.I. Joe, it happened for us. He's like, gather around, everyone.
I'm pretty excited about this though, because it was via comicbook.com with my friend Brandon Davis, whose birthday it also was. So what a great birthday present to have this be all over the place, where The Rock dropped that in the Black Adam movie, JSA, Justice Society of America, will be appearing. He was joking with Kevin Hart because Kevin Hart was saying that he wanted a role in the movie, and The Rock said, we're also going to introduce JSA in Black Adam. And then talking to Hart, he said, so in JSA, maybe there's a role, they have an animal, a pet. Tough break, Kevin Hart. Tough break, Kevin Hart. But how are you guys feeling about this? Are you excited for the JSA? Are you surprised by this announcement? Eric, thoughts?
Surprised, yeah, but it's pretty cool. Like, first of all, it makes you think, okay, this is going to be a period piece, which makes sense because there were little nods, and they cut some more nods to him in Shazam, and this is a way that basically you can have a period piece that leads into him showing up in the modern age, so they can have him and Shazam in a future movie. So it all makes sense to me. I do go down that rabbit hole of the DCEU and what does it even mean anymore, and is it important anymore? Because you go back and look, I'm not saying MCU hasn't done this too. MCU has certainly done they've done retconning, like when it's like, oh, actually we met Captain Marvel. But it's funny when you think about Man of Steel, and it's like it did not feel like there was this history of superheroes.
No.
But does that matter anymore? It's like, even though Shazam is connected to Man of Steel and that it was once intended to be this big universe, it doesn't seem like that's important at this point.
Yeah.
So they can kind of do whatever they want, I guess. Why not?
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting discussion, though, that you bring up, because I think that, what's happened a lot with the, because I'm with you, like, what does the DCEU even mean? Does it mean anything? And also, I think that there is a little bit of a history there of trying to do these, like, big crossover movies before we care about the individuals in a lot of ways, and which isn't to say that that's what this is. This is clearly a Black Adam movie, and the Justice Society of America is just going to be in it, but it is like, well, do we want to spend a movie like more with like getting to know Black Adam? I don't know.
Right. But hopefully we have no idea. Like they could be very tangential.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean like the Justice Society or like a huge. But who knows? Because if this is a movie about him being like a bad guy, maybe this is who he's fighting. You know?
Yeah.
Which actually could be kind of cool.
It could be cool.
It could be any varying degrees of massive in this movie, but I agree with you that Eric, that this is mostly about what time we're doing, which I am happy about because it would make no sense that we are just introduced to Black Adam in current day.
Yeah.
We need to go back.
Yeah.
He's not one of those heroes / villains / super people in general who you could be like, everybody knows about Black Adam's origin. We don't need to show that on screen. We've got to go back. They have to know who he is, especially if ultimately what we're going to do is a Black Adam Shazam fight and then team up. We need to know where he's coming from. And I think that's where everybody thinks that he's going. So.
And it's interesting too because Wonder Woman, presumably the reason Wonder Woman was set in World War I, not World War II, was because Captain America had just done.
Totally.
But it is interesting. It's like, they could do this as World War II era. It doesn't need to be during the war, but around that era. And it almost makes me think now I'm thinking about Watchmen, which famously had like a super team in that era. But so the JSA, the JSA, again, like a lot of comic books, they've moved through different eras. But I don't know. That would be kind of cool, I think.
I think it would be kind of cool.
Old-timey costumes,
I, in general, am a fan of period pieces when it comes to sort of like your intro to superheroes because I think that it does a nice job of kind of giving them their own space to live in.
Right.
Well, we don't have to address things like Henry Cavill saying that the Superman suit is still in his closet. And, when we go back, it's like, okay, what we're saying is, ignoring all of you, don't care what you guys are doing in the future. I'm going to do me, and I'm going to make this story about myself, and you guys aren't going to be sitting there wondering, but where's Superman?
Right.
Where's Batman?
You know what? That is exactly what it is. It's because it's isolating us from, say, the Supermans and the Batmans of the world that are sort of the more well-known names within like DC Comics. So that's exactly right.
And with a character like Black Adam, he can be The Rock in the 1920s and he can be The Rock in the 2019s. And he can look the exact same.
Totally.
So that's a great character to go back and do it with. Let's get into some fan questions though, guys, because we got a bunch of them and I want to make sure we get to them. These are people who are using the hashtag. I'm sorry, I have to pause for my singing. Pause for singing and dancing.
Okay.
Thank goodness for Ken, who pointed up and let me know that my beautiful voice was playing. These are the people that used hashtag Never Surrender, so they bought tickets to the upcoming screening for the documentary Never Surrender, the Galaxy Quest documentary. If you guys want to see it, November 26th, tweeted us, use hashtag Never Surrender, and you might get a shout out on this show as well. So let's get to some of these fan questions that use that hashtag. This one's coming from Myra Marin at Mamarin148. Sorry if I butchered your name. I tend to do that. What other movies do you guys feel are ahead of their time? What movies do you feel? So I'm assuming that's also saying what other movies in terms of Galaxy Quest was ahead of their time. Emma, any movies that you feel like were ahead of their time?
Yes, I have often felt that Fight Club was ahead of its time, mostly because a lot of people missed the point of Fight Club. Fight Club was very much about toxic masculinity and men feeling like they were being left behind by society. A lot of people just saw it as Tyler Durden's really cool. If that is you, I implore you to watch the movie again, maybe with a little more of a... Now, critical isn't the word I'm looking for, but a little more of a scholarly approach.
Be scholarly, people. Eric, what do you think?
It's a tricky one because I'm like, is it ahead of its time versus has already been reevaluated? But so I'm going to split the difference. I'll say Starship Troopers.
Oh,
just because, again, a movie that was very misinterpreted when it opened.
Totally.
And not that its messages weren't relevant then, but even more, just as time goes on, the fact that it was like basically a disguise. It looked like one thing. It looked like this glossy action sci-fi movie, which it delivers on if you just want that. But just the idea that, to me, the great thing about the movie is it is this propaganda film that it's like we are watching a propaganda film for this fictional war, and we are watching how like the dehumanization of the enemy and kill them all, and the fact that it's like only good bug is a dead bug, and it's using this metaphor of like literal bugs, but it's like, oh no, this is like they're selling you on this war of this fascist society. And I think just the approach Verhoeven was taking, the fact that he used Sony's $100 million to do this, which I'm sure they're like, what do we pay for? But I think that it was ahead of its time, just as far as like I think people when it opened, certainly they didn't get what it was trying to do. They took it at face value, and there was a lot more going on there.
Mine is something that came out very recently. Talk to me in 20 years. Let's see how this movie aged. Life Itself, guys. This movie is ahead of its time. I'm telling you, it's the Dan Fogelman movie that has a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was the best movie of 2018. You guys are all not seeing it yet. I'm telling you. In 20 years, this movie will have a cult following. It is the most emotionally charged, moving movie. I don't know what it is about this time where we can't deal with the things that it's talking about, but talk to me in a decade or two.
Yeah.
This movie is ahead of its time. I'm telling you, friends, ahead of its time.
I also want to just shout out Blade Runner and Akira, both of which are set in 2019 and got a shocking number of things right.
Yeah, agreed. As well as Simpsons has. So,
That's right.
You know, a lot of things have. Let's go to Dara Cosby at Dara Renee 81. Also could be Dara, because, again, can't pronounce things.
Yep.
What film have you seen the most in theaters? Number one movie you have seen in theaters. Eric, what do you got?
So this is hard for me because, man, guys, I've seen a lot of movies like 10 times in the theaters.
Wow.
And yeah, especially because I worked at movie theaters and I would just like stay after stuff. And then there's re-releases like the Star Wars movies. It's like there's been multiple times. I mean, if there's a new Star Wars movie, I'm gonna see it at least 7 to 10 times. But the one I think I've seen the most in theaters is Scream. Which, I just went to over and over, and Scream opened at Christmas. No one expected it to be the hit it was, and actually played for months, and then it kind of got re-released in the spring, and I just kept going. And it was like, they made the perfect movie for me, and I remember seeing it in like June still, like from its December release.
Yeah.
So I think I've seen it, and then I've seen it, and now I've seen it here, like the New Beverly and stuff when they show it. So I think we're going on like 23 or 24 times probably.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we never saw him again. I could write a whole show about that. Boy who saw Scream. Emma, what have you seen the most?
I think for me, it's OG Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, wow.
Because I remember seeing that so many times in theaters when I was a kid, and then that one also got a re-release where they put in the song Human Again, which is from the Broadway musical, and so I saw it multiple times then. So I probably saw it 5 or 6 times when it originally came out, and then another 2 or 3 in its re-release. So I think Beauty and the Beast takes the cake. Aladdin was up there also, but because of Beauty and the Beast getting that re-release, I think that's where it edges it out.
I don't know if this counts because it wasn't when it was originally in theaters, although I did see this movie all too young. But every time it's come back at one of those like rooftop things or anything. And in LA,
like that, we are lucky to have a lot of that.
One of those,
a lot of that.
I see it at least once a year, if not more, is Cruel Intentions.
Oh, wow.
That movie plays everywhere, and it's so
that movie.
great.
It's so good.
I can watch it in any mood.
Yes.
I just love it, and it's so weird.
Yeah,
I kind of can't believe it was made.
You've seen the John Malkovich Dangerous Liaisons, right, with Glenn Close, and I just Ryan Felipe in that movie is literally playing John Malkovich in Dangerous Liaisons, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, I feel you on that.
Bittersweet Symphony.
Yep.
I always think of it.
So good.
I do too. I do as well. I believe that's all the time we have for fan questions today, though. So don't forget to keep using the hashtag Never Surrender so you can get your shout out here on SJU. But until Monday, Emma, where can the people keep up with you?
You can find me all over the internet wherever Emma Fyffes are sold at my name, Emma Fyffe. I've got a website. It's emmafyffe.com. I just keep it Emma Fyffe in all the places. Catch me on Thursdays on Collider Jedi Council over on Collider. That drops at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And we are continuing our adventures in our live play Call of Cthulhu campaign called He Left It Dead, which is GM'd by Joe Starr. We are 2 episodes into Volume 4. You don't have to watch all the other volumes to know what's happening in Volume 4. Go back, catch up over the holidays, and we'll be back the Wednesday after Thanksgiving, Wednesday. Yep, I just said Wednesday, and I immediately said Thursday. 6 p.m. twitch.tv/hyperrpg.
It's been a long week.
It's been
a long week.
Oh boy, yes it has.
EG, where can the people find you?
I am the Eric Goldman on your Twitter and on your Instagram, on fandom.com. You can find my articles like the aforementioned Star Wars one, which has something about breakthrough tech of Mandalorian in the headline. And then I've got the We Enjoy Wrestling podcast.
Awesome. Guys, I'm everywhere at Roxy Striar. Thank you to Ryan. Thank you to Joe. Thank you to Ken. And we'll see you Monday.